Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I never imagined that a simple sentence could leave such a deep mark on me. It was an ordinary evening, one of those quiet ones where nothing extraordinary seems to happen. My girlfriend, Lena, and I were sitting on a balcony, watching the city lights flicker beneath the dusky sky. She had her head resting on her hand, her eyes lost somewhere far away. There was a long silence before she finally spoke, her tone calm but heavy. "Love can wait," she said softly, "but friendship can't. They'll be here after everything fades." Her words didn't hit me immediately. They hung in the air for a few seconds before sinking in. I looked at her, trying to understand what she truly meant. She smiled faintly, avoiding my gaze. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're happy. It was the kind that hides pain, the kind that warns you something deeper is happening beneath the surface. At that moment, I felt a strange unease in my chest. We'd been dating for over a year, and while things weren't perfect, I believe we shared something real. We laughed, argued, planned, and dreamed like any other couple. But that night, I sensed something had changed. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. She nodded. "Yeah, just thinking about life, about how things shift with time." I didn't press further. I wanted to respect her space, though my heart was restless. I could tell that whatever was bothering her wasn't something small. Still, I chose silence. Maybe I was scared of what the truth might be. In the days that followed, her words began to echo in my mind. Love can wait, but friendship can't. What did that mean for us? Was she trying to say that our relationship was losing its spark? Or that someone else, maybe one of her friends, had started to matter more to her than I did? Lena had always been someone who valued friendships deeply. She believed that friends were her safety net, people who had been there long before I came into her life. I respected that. Truly, I never wanted to come between her and her friends. But lately, it felt like I was slowly being pushed aside, like I had become an optional part of her life. There were moments when I would call her and she'd say, "I'm out with the group. Can we talk later?" Later would often turn into never. When we'd plan a quiet dinner, one of her friends would call, and she'd suddenly remember a small get-together she'd promised to attend. At first, I tried to understand. Relationships, I told myself, needed space. But soon, that space began to feel like a growing distance. One weekend, she invited me to join her and her friends for a camping trip. I accepted without hesitation, hoping it might bring us closer. I wanted to be part of her world, to understand the people who meant so much to her. When we arrived, everyone was cheerful, laughing, sharing inside jokes that left me feeling slightly out of place. Lena seemed different around them, more carefree, more alive. She laughed louder, moved more freely, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in a while. I sat beside her, smiling along, pretending to fit in, though deep down, a quiet insecurity was growing. There was one friend in particular, Ryan. He was charming, confident, the kind of guy who seemed to naturally draw attention. He and Lena shared a comfortable closeness. They teased each other, exchanged knowing glances, and had private conversations that trailed off into laughter I couldn't quite understand. At one point, while setting up the campfire, Ryan made a joke about how Lena was a glue that held everyone together. She laughed and playfully shoved him, saying, "That's because I love my friends too much to let go." And there was again that same sentiment. Love can wait, but friendship can't. That night, as everyone sat around the fire, singing and talking, I watched her. She looked so happy among them. I should have felt joy seeing her smile like that, but instead, I felt invisible. She was right there beside me, yet so far away. Later, as we lay in the tent, I finally gathered the courage to ask, "Do you ever feel like maybe I don't belong in that world of yours?" She turned to face me, her expression soft but unreadable. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You do belong. But you have to understand, my friends are my world too. They've seen me through everything, even before us." "I get that," I said quietly, "but sometimes I feel like I'm competing with them." She sighed. "You're not competing, love. It's just, Friendship lasts in a way love sometimes doesn't. People fall in love and fall out of it. But true friends, they stay. They survive every phase of life. Her words stung, not because they were wrong, but because of what they implied. If friendship was eternal and love was temporary, then where did that leave me? Was I just a fleeting moment in her long journey? I couldn't sleep that night. Her breathing was calm beside me, but my mind was racing. I wanted to believe that her heart still held a place for me, a place strong enough to weather her shifting priorities. But as the days went by, reality became harder to ignore. Her messages became shorter, our calls less frequent. When I asked to meet, she'd often say she was busy, and then I'd see photos of her out with her friends. Ryan was always there. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but patterns have a way of revealing truths we wish weren't real. I tried to hold on, convincing myself it was just a phase. Maybe she needed time to balance things out. But the more I tried to stay patient, the more distant she became. One evening, after nearly a week of silence, I decided to visit her apartment. I didn't tell her I was coming. I just wanted to see her, to talk face to face, to remind her of what we were losing. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, almost uneasy. "Oh, hey, I wasn't expecting you." "Yeah, I figured," I said, trying to smile. "Can we talk?" She hesitated for a second before nodding. "Sure, but make it quick. I have plans of the group tonight." There was again, the group. Those words had begun to sound heavier than they should. I stepped inside, glancing around her living room. It looked different, not in decor, but in energy. There were new framed photos on the wall, her and her friends at the beach, hiking, laughing at some cafe. I wasn't in any of them. We sat down, and I asked a question that had been burning inside me for weeks. "Lena, are we okay? Because lately, it feels like I'm not really part of your life anymore." She exhaled slowly, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "You are, but things have been changing. I'm realizing what really matters to me. I've spent so much time focusing on being in a relationship that I forgot how important friendship is. My friends have always been there, and I don't want to lose that again. So what about us?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. She met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty, maybe even guilt. "I still care about you," she said softly. "But love can wait. Friendship can't. They'll be here after everything else fades." Her tone was calm, almost too calm, as if she had already made peace with what she was saying. I sat there frozen, trying to absorb her words. It felt like she wasn't just talking about balance. She was drawing a line between us. "You mean if you had to choose," I asked quietly, "you'd choose them?" She didn't answer right away. The silence between us was deafening. Finally, she whispered, "I think I already have." There was the quiet heartbreak I'd been fearing. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even emotional. Just certain. I nodded slowly, forcing a small smile. "I understand." But I didn't. Not really. I walked out of her apartment that night feeling hollow. The city lights blurred as I drove home, and her words replayed in my mind like a haunting melody. Love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after everything fades. For her, it was wisdom. For me, it was goodbye in disguise. When I reached home, I sat in the dark, scrolling through old photos, the ones where she was laughing with me, not beside someone else. I tried to find comfort in the idea that maybe she just needed space, that maybe she'd come back when she realized what we had. But deep down, I knew. Sometimes, love doesn't lose to hate or betrayal. It simply loses to priorities. And that's the kind of heartbreak no one prepares you for. Still, I told myself I'd wait, because love, after all, can wait, even if she believed it shouldn't have to. Days turned into weeks after that night. Yet her words still echoed in my head. Love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after everything fades. It's strange how one sentence can completely change how you see everything. Before, I used to think love was the strongest bond, the one that could survive distance, silence, even mistakes. But after hearing Lena say that, I started to question whether love was enough at all. We didn't officially break up that night. There were no dramatic arguments, No angry messages. It was more like a quiet unraveling, a slow fade that neither of us had the courage to stop. She stopped calling, and I stopped expecting her to. Conversations that once lasted hours turned into polite, short exchanges that didn't mean anything anymore. I remember one evening sitting at my desk, staring at my phone, wondering whether to send her a message. Something simple like, "Hey, I miss you." But then I stopped myself. I had already sent enough messages into the void, ones that were seen but never answered, or answered with emotionless replies like, "Sorry, busy with friends." It was in that silence that I finally realized I wasn't waiting for love anymore. I was waiting for closure. A month passed before I saw her again. It was at a mutual friend's birthday party. I almost didn't go, but part of me needed to see her, to face whatever feelings were still buried inside me. When I arrived, she was already there. She looked radiant, glowing with that effortless energy that had first drawn me to her. She was surrounded by her group, laughing, talking, her hand occasionally brushing Ryan's shoulder. That small gesture alone told me more than words ever could. She didn't notice me at first. I stood there quietly, blending into the background, watching the girl who once used to be my whole world move on like I had never existed. After a few minutes, her eyes met mine. For a split second, her smile faltered. Then she walked over. "Hey," she said softly. "It's been a while." "Yeah," I replied, forcing a small smile. "You look happy." "I am," she said, her tone polite but distant. "How have you been?" "Getting by," I answered. "Work's been keeping me busy." We both laughed awkwardly, the kind of laugh people use to hide discomfort. It felt strange, this formality between two people who once shared everything. After a pause, she looked down at her drink and said, "I hope you're not mad at me. I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I replied. "You just chose what felt right for you." She nodded slowly, as if relieved by my calmness. "I just needed to figure out who I was. I lost a lot of myself in relationships before you, and I didn't want to repeat that." I wanted to tell her that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself, that love and freedom can exist together. But what would be the point? She had already made peace with her decision. "Are you and Ryan?" I started to ask, then stopped midway. She looked up, reading the unfinished question in my eyes. "We're close," she said honestly. "He's been there for me lately, but it's not what you think." I nodded, though I wasn't sure whether to believe her. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever we had was already gone. We talked a bit more about work, mutual friends, small things that didn't carry any weight. Then she excused herself, saying she had to help with something. As she walked away, Ryan joined her, placing his arm casually around her shoulders. She didn't shrug it off. They looked natural together, comfortable, the way she and I used to be. That night, as I drove home, I felt strangely at peace. Not because I was over her, but because I finally accepted that I couldn't make someone choose me when they had already chosen another path. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself. I started spending more time with my own friends, people I had unintentionally distanced myself from while being consumed by the relationship. It felt strange at first to laugh again without thinking of her, to make plans that didn't revolve around her schedule. But slowly, something shifted. I began to rediscover the parts of me I had forgotten. The dreams, the hobbies, the quiet confidence that once defined me. One day, while cleaning my room, I found an old photo of us, the two of us sitting on that same balcony where she had said those words that changed everything. I stared at it for a long time, then placed it in a box along with other memories. Not to erase them, but to finally let them rest. That's when I realized something profound. She wasn't wrong when she said friendship can't wait. She just misunderstood what friendship truly means. Real friendship, the kind that endures, isn't limited to people who laugh with you during the good times. It's built with those who choose to stay when things fall apart. Love, in its purest form, is also friendship, just deeper, quieter, and stronger. I once thought she had chosen friendship over love. But now I see she had simply chosen comfort over depth. She wanted people who wouldn't demand vulnerability, who wouldn't challenge her to face emotional truths. Maybe that's what she needed at that stage of her life. And that's okay. I learned to stop resenting her for it. We all make choices based on what we can handle, not always what's right. Nearly a year later, I ran into her again, this time at a bookstore. It was unexpected. She was standing in the aisle, reading a novel, wearing that same soft smile that once melted my heart. When she noticed me, her eyes widened in surprise. "Hey," she said with a nervous laugh. "You're still around." "Yeah," I replied, smiling genuinely this time. "Still around." We chatted for a bit, and it felt easier than before. No tension, no lingering pain. Just two people who had once shared a chapter in each other's lives. At one point, she said, "You seem different. Happier, calmer." "I think I finally understood what you meant back then." I said, "About friendship not being able to wait." She tilted her head curiously. "Oh, what do you mean?" "I realize that love isn't supposed to wait either." I replied, "It's supposed to grow with patience, with honesty. And when it doesn't, you learn to love yourself instead." She smiled softly, but there was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "I'm glad you found peace." "I really am." "Thanks," I said. "I hope you did too." There was a pause, one of those moments where silence says more than words ever could. Then she nodded and said, "Take care, okay?" "You too," I replied. As she walked away, I watched her go, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Some people come into your life to stay, while others come to teach you something you didn't know you needed to learn. Lena taught me that love and friendship aren't opposites. They're two forms of the same thing, connection. The only difference is that one demands depth while the other asks for consistency. For a long time, I believed her when she said love could wait. But now I know the truth. Love doesn't wait. It evolves, it transforms, and sometimes it quietly lets go. Months later, on a quiet evening, I found myself back on that same balcony where it had all started. The air was cool, the city lights shimmering in the distance. I thought about everything, the laughter, the pain, the quiet goodbyes that never got spoken aloud. I wasn't angry anymore. In a strange way, I was thankful, because losing her made me rediscover parts of myself I had long neglected. It taught me patience, forgiveness, and the courage to start over. Love doesn't always end the way we imagine. Sometimes it fades without closure. Sometimes it shifts into memory. But it always leaves something behind, a lesson, a reminder, a piece of growth. I took a deep breath and whispered to the night, "You were right, Lena. Friendship can't wait. But love doesn't have to. Because real love doesn't compete. It understands. It endures silently. And when it's ready, it finds its way back. Not always the same person, but to the same heart that once learned how to feel deeply."